Okay, good afternoon to everybody in the great country of Canada and the United States, and good late afternoon and evening to those of you in Europe, and it's very late in some parts of Asia, and welcome to those of you in Africa and the Middle East. I know we'll have some of you tuning in for that. I'm really pleased today to have a very special guest. Live from Ontario, Canada, and her name is Danisha Allen. And good afternoon, Danisha.
Hi, Brett. Good afternoon.
It's great to have you on the program here. And I'm Danisha is a purpose-driven finance professional with more than a decade of years in that field. And as many of you know, I have a special affinity for anybody in the finance industry. That's where I made my career over 3 decades as well. And so I really have a big understanding of the importance of that particular sector of the economy and what Danisha does. And she's a woman of very strong character, great resilience. We're going to talk about resilience today. And she has a fascinating story to tell about her life that really inspired me back when we met several months ago, actually. So Danisha is the proud mother of 2 boys and is happily married to her high school sweetheart, Rory, for nearly 2 decades, 18 years. So really pleased to have you. And so Danisha, did I miss anything important in your in describing how wonderful you are?
uh, you did a good job in introducing me.
Okay,
awesome.
good.
Mhm.
Okay, you give me credit for that. So,
Mhm.
okay, great. At any rate, it's a great to have you. Great to have you on the program, and I've really been looking forward to having this conversation with you as well. Tell us a bit about you're in Ontario, Canada. Tell us how you wound up there, where you're originally from, and we'll just kind of go from there.
For sure. So you heard my accent. I am from
Uh-huh.
Jamaica, born and raised.
Yes.
My my parents were passionate about education because they had
Mm.
the mindset that um, education would break the cycle
Mm-hmm.
of poverty. So I grew up and I went to high school, university, and then when I wanted to get married to my husband 18
Mm.
years ago,
Yeah.
my dad said, if you want to go to the States, because that's what we wanted to do, we wanted to go see the world. He said, well, promise me you're going to do your MBA.
Yeah.
And I said, I will.
Wow.
And that's how we started our journey. And um, a week after getting married, we were in the
Uh-huh.
States and we started,
Wow.
yeah, and we started university. But to our
Oh my goodness.
surprise, I and we can even talk about, so I'll just give you
Yeah.
a quick run through and then we can go into any details if you'd like. And then
Sure. No, that's
after,
fine. Yeah, you're doing great. Yeah.
yeah, and then after the US, after doing my MBA and even having a son there, and we can talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
In 2009, when the recession hit the
Mm.
US, my
Yep.
husband said, "What about Canada?" And I said, "We have nothing to lose. Let's do it."
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I applied for
Wow.
another school in Canada, and that's how we came to Canada. I think we applied for 7 universities, and
Mm-hmm.
I
Wow.
would get rejected each time,
Oh my
and I couldn't
gosh.
yeah. So after the first one, we got rejected, and time was of the
Uh-huh.
essence now, and I could not understand until picked up the phone on the 7th try. I said, "What's happening?" And they
Uh-huh.
said, "There must be something wrong with your transcript, my MBA transcript." And I said, "There's nothing wrong with it." And this school was
Right.
in Thunder Bay, and that would be at
Mm-hmm.
maybe 12 hours away from where I am now.
Yep.
We worked it out, and they said, "Well, our program is closed. If you want to go to the satellite in Barrie, Ontario, you're free to
Yep.
join." And so that's why I'm here in
Oh,
Barrie,
okay.
Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, first of all, you just said a whole lot there, and I want to
Yeah,
unpack some of that. But before
sure.
we do that, I want to acknowledge, first of all, for those of you on Facebook, I'll get to you about halfway through the program. But I'm zeroed in on LinkedIn right now, which is where a big part of the network is, and just like to acknowledge a few people, Danisha, before we continue here. And so we've got Michael Osei Quabina, which says, welcome, Danisha. We've got Mohammed Hamad here as well. Mohammed, thank you so much for tuning in. We have Gary Spencer, my friend Gary Spencer from Birmingham in the UK. It's they're having a really hot summer there, but it'll be okay. We have my good friend from Iran. We have Insay Bakshapur here as well. Insay, I really appreciate all of your engagement and inspiration that you provide to this platform and support. And we have Sharon Doran from Barrie, Ontario. She's very excited to hear from a local businesswoman. So, so there you go. We have Mamadou Ba here as well. We have Natalo Charles from Uganda. I love Uganda. I spent a lot of time in Uganda. Never lived there, but traveled through there. I love your country, and most of all, the people and the culture of Uganda as well. We have Joe Gonzalez here. Joe, good afternoon to you. Thank you for tuning in. It's great to have you here. Really appreciate your support. We have Sylvia Cummings from Trinidad and Tobago here as well. We have Ntalo Charles. We have a lot of people tuning in, Danisha. So you're really popular. We have somebody from Ghana, Silver Don J from Ghana. We have let's see. I think I got them all. Okay, good. So for those of you that are in the room right now, as we progress our conversation, please do tee up questions for either Danisha or myself. It can be anything you'd like to talk about. We're wide open because this program is really for you, and it's also my way of highlighting an elite performer. And I'll talk a bit about that in a few minutes, which is Danisha. The work that she does and the contribution to the community over many different years is really inspirational. And so that's really what the twofold objective is. So please do tee up any questions that you have for either of us as we proceed. Okay, Danisha, so I got that going as well. Everybody's engaged. We're ready to go. Let's unpack a little bit about what you talked about. So when your husband said, so a recession hit, I heard you say a recession hit, and your husband said, let's go to Canada. So where in the world did that come from? I mean, I understand that he said that and that you're there and everything, but I mean, that was kind of a thing, right? You're both in Jamaica at the time, right?
So we were in Jamaica, and then we moved to the US for about 5 years, and that's where I did my MBA. So when we graduated, and we were really struggling, I actually had a son there. My son, he's 13 now. Well, no, he's not 13. He's 15 now. And we just had a tough time during that MBA process. I remember, being in the hospital for a significant amount of time, and people would say, "Hey, why don't you just go back home to Jamaica?" But I said I promised my dad that I'd do this MBA and I would make something of myself in North America. And even there, during that recession time, I remember having to go to the baby pantry with my son. It was really tough. So we were just trying to be nimble. And my husband said, this is not the place for us. We can't die here. I even went home to Jamaica for 2 weeks to see if there was any. So after I graduated, I brought my son home for 2 weeks just to see if there was any opportunity. But you know what the old saying is, if America catches a if America sneezes,
Yeah.
then the rest of the world catches a cold, and it was tough in Jamaica as well. So my husband said,
Mm.
"What about Canada?" And I was ready.
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic. And I mean, first of all, that's being bold, right? As well, because I assume you didn't know anybody in Canada at the time.
No,
Did
I
you
have
know
no blood.
people in Canada?
So my husband has an uncle.
Mm.
So we stayed with him for
Okay.
3 weeks. And then he was
Okay.
in lower southern Ontario, and
Hmm.
Barrie is more central Ontario. So we stayed with him for 3 weeks, and then we launched out, tried to find an apartment and just get settled. And then I commuted to school.
I see. Okay. That's fantastic. So great. And then it obviously worked, because here you are today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just yesterday, the United States, the world's largest economy still, entered recession. And I have been pretty active in the community across my global network, and as anticipated, there are some business owners that have had lines of credit that they depend on for cash flow in their business, and banks are in the process of reviewing those credit lines for certain customers in certain geographies in certain industries. And this is what banks do. So one particular business just had their credit line revoked. Okay. Two other particular business, and all of these are in the United States, which is kind of where the problem is. A couple of businesses didn't have their credit line revoked, but the interest rates are going up, right? The banks are ratcheting up interest rates. So now they're having to reevaluate their cost base because their interest expense is going up. I mean, that's what happens, right? So those are just a couple of examples. Not going to throw out a lot of others, but the recession, while the U.S. entered it yesterday, this choppiness has been going on for a while, because obviously everything didn't happen yesterday. That the economy's been struggling for a while, and now it's showing up in the indicators. So reason why I'm saying this is that you mentioned recession back when, at the time that you were getting your MBA, and then you all decided to go to Canada. I think that's a bold move, because it wasn't a booming economy, to pick up and go to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, things weren't necessarily booming at that time, right? So for those of the people watching that are seeing another recession right now, because it is a fact, it is here. What advice would you have for them, given what you and your husband did, that, you had to do something, but the economy's not necessarily in your favor, but you did it anyway? Talk about your mindset and that of your husband during that time frame. What was it, a big debate? Was it something that you had to think about for a long time? Did you stress about it? Walk us through the mindset of you and your husband when you made that decision.
Yeah. So we went into survival mode.
Okay.
We wanted, because we had a young boy, a young son. He was less than 2 years old. So we had to have unity. We had to be on the same page. And we decided we're going to do whatever it takes to survive and to make this family grow. So when I entered that, so when I graduated from that, and I did the teachers college, I actually did an MBA in the States, and I pivoted.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I did whatever it took to get into a school. I did teachers college for 1 year. They said, if you have a degree already, you could go to university to get a bachelor's in education for 1 year, and then you could be a teacher. I said, I could do that. I can do anything. I don't think I had that in my mind, but now I think I believe I can do most things that I put my head to. But So then after I graduated, there's a supply
Mhm.
list. It was difficult to get onto the supply list. And here it is, we're still struggling. My husband was working at a clinic, wasn't making a lot of money. So I worked at Walmart.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was a manager of
Yep.
customer service there. And then
Mhm.
it was then that I worked for a couple of years, and then that's how I somehow got into to a bank.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay. Yep.
yeah, and then
So it
after
evolved. It evolved.
it
And
evolved,
yeah.
and then I was laid off from that branch, and I
Mhm.
worked at TD, and that was how did I shouldn't say that word. I worked at another bank, and that was
Yep.
because I served that branch manager so well in Wasaga Beach. So there is a Wasaga Beach
Yep.
there's a branch of that bank right across from the Walmart. And
Okay.
I guess he liked me so much. And then I reached out to him. And then that's how
Yep.
I started, exploring
Mhm.
financial services where I really wanted to be. But in a tough time, don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid of the tough times. You might have to take a step back, or you might have to shift to the side, but the
Yep.
goal of your goal of achieving your financial or your career dreams still remains the
Mm.
same. You might have to detour.
Okay, that's powerful. That's what I wanted to get to, and is that during times of adversity, when the external environment's not so good, and right now in the U.S. it's not so good. And folks, it's probably going to get worse. Right? I'm not making a prediction, but the likelihood of things deteriorating further. I gave you a couple of examples of what's really happening with businesses, with banks recalling some credit lines, cost of funds going up. It's going to be some pressure. Okay, hopefully it won't be too bad, but it could be. It could also be global. But regardless of that, I think what you've heard from Danisha just now is don't be afraid to pivot and keep going forward to reach your goal, right? You had the goal of landing somewhere for family reasons, for promise to your father, right? And, these things were driving you. And so you weren't afraid to pivot, regardless of what was happening. So when the environment gets difficult, this is the key piece of advice. Don't be afraid to make that move, okay? Because we all cannot afford the luxury of constant sunshine in our day. We wish we could, but there's going to be those cloudy days, and think about it as you get on a commercial airline and it's raining and you're taking off from Chicago O'Hare bound for Dubai, okay? And you take off and it's just a gray, dark day. But in 10 minutes, you're surrounded by sunshine. That pilot has found the sunshine. And that's what you and your family did, right? If you look at your entire journey, and that's what you did. And sometimes you have to take a step back. You have to, you worked for Walmart, right? Which actually there's nothing wrong with working for Walmart. That's one of the greatest companies in America's history. And I
Absolutely.
know I have a lot of friends in my hometown in the US that work for Walmart. And they're wonderful people. I learn a lot from those people because those people are on the ground. Could you tell us about a Walmart experience that sticks out in your mind, Danisha?
Oh, there are so many. That place taught me how to think on my feet because there was no day that was the
Mm.
same. I remember, and now that you're thinking, so with Sega Beach they would call it a tourist area where
Okay.
the folks and the kids from Toronto would come up from
Mhm.
the city and come to vacation here. And I was a
Okay.
manager on duty, and there was some drinking. And do you know what somebody called me in to say that there was somebody passed out in the washroom, and
Oh,
we're trying to
wow.
open the door, and the person was unresponsive.
Mhm.
I don't know, I wouldn't say panic, but something just clicked in me. I went underneath on the floor. Now that I'm up and fine, on the nasty floor where there was urine everywhere, going underneath to unlock the door so that the
Wow.
paramedics could come. So that was a day at Walmart.
And how did
It was
it turn? Was the person okay? Was the person
yeah,
okay,
she
Danisha?
just was passed out. I don't know if she had alcohol but she was unconscious.
Okay,
So somebody
but
had to
she's
do
okay.
something. Yeah, she's okay. I
Yeah,
think she was
I
able
mean,
to
you
walk
did
out.
it right. And now this is an experience. Anyway, it's interesting. We've got Steve Sellen. Welcome. It's great to have you here. Thank you for all your support. Steve worked at Walmart. He said he worked at Walmart.
Awesome.
He had a good experience, and
Yeah.
he said he could tell us stories as well. So, Steve, maybe someday I'll bring you on here. We can talk about Walmart too. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, Walmart, the people that go there to shop, not so." I tell you what, my wife and I, we've been Walmart customers for years, decades, right? And
And
again, some of the best people that I know in the world work on the floor at Walmart. They have these greeters when you walk in the store that greet you and the whole thing that way, and the pricing's decent, right? So you look for value. So the
and
criticizers of
oh
Walmart,
no,
I
I
just
am
brush to the
indebted
side.
to
Yeah,
I'm indebted to Walmart because the
yeah,
associates included
mm,
me. And I was and
yeah,
the people, it was a small town, and I was known by name, and I was never known
yeah.
before. And
That's right.
yeah,
So a lot of
everybody, you want to,
skills.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this conversation isn't. It's about Denisha and her
Mhm,
experiences, but I'm zeroed in on Walmart right now because
mhm.
Denisha just told a story about kind of something that stood out in her mind about helping the woman that passed out in the bathroom. Walmart is a reflection of what's going on in the community, right? And I've seen this here. You've got it's almost like looking in the mirror of the community, right? You've got all sorts of different types of people from different backgrounds and this very diverse customer base. Walmart's a great reflection of that as well. It's also a great reflection of what's happening in the retail economy. Okay, you can see people that look at prices when during periods of inflation, like right now, and then when you don't have inflation, people just grab what they want and then they go. So it's a great reflection to study people, and I'm bringing up emphasizing Walmart here because for those of you globally in other countries that may not have a Walmart, go to your local staple retail grocery store and have a look at the consumer behavior if you want to know what's going on in the economy, because that's where you go see it. I had a great boss of mine in London, and he used to, Mike Amato's his name. He used to tell us, if you want to know what's going on in London on the streets, talk to a taxi driver. Take a
Mm.
taxi ride for a half hour. So in London, if you want to know really what's happening, you do that. I was in Egypt. I flew into Cairo and got off the plane, got through immigration. This is before the uprising and the overthrow of the Mubarak regime. And I got in the car, and the driver was taking me to the hotel so I could take a shower and then go to work. And he told me, Denisha, he told me that, I said, the election's coming up. And he just kind of laughed and said, well, it's not a real election. It's all rigged.
Mm.
And so I said, well, tell me more about that. And I'm glad I asked that question. He said, there's going to be some big changes in Egypt in the next couple of years. And by golly, I don't know, within 18, 24 months, they had an overthrow of the government. So that driver knew what was going to happen in Egypt because there was a lot of chatter on the ground. And sure enough, that's what happened. You started hearing stories about, because social media, people are going to overthrow this government, and they did. and it's just amazing. So if you want to know what's going, here's lesson number 2 from this conversation with Danisha. You want to know what's going on the ground, go visit a retail store, talk to a taxi driver, okay? And it doesn't have to just be Egypt, London, Egypt. It doesn't matter. They know what's going on, and then form your opinion. It's much more informative than flipping on the TV, because then you don't have a spin on things. And I can tell you, these so-called media gurus, okay, in the media, print and television, none of them predicted the Egypt overthrow. And I'm just giving one example, as well. And so if you really want to know what's going on, be in touch with the ground. Anything to add, Danisha?
I agree. Talk to the locals. They are in the know. That's good.
Yeah, talk to the locals who are in the know as well. Let's see. Cynthia is here from Dubai, but she's actually with her children and family in native Kenya. Cynthia, thank you for taking the time to come and join us here as well. You're very inspirational. And Cynthia mentioned, Danisha, that she knows a friend of hers went to middle school with, is the energy manager for Walmart in Canada. It's a great company as well. Wow, I promise this discussion is not sponsored by Walmart. It just happened. Danisha will tell you, as all of my guests, is that we never script anything. So it's like this just came up.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping many of you can take this as, kind of a lesson as well, and that type of thing. So at any rate, please tee up your questions if you have anything for Danisha as we continue on. Okay, so Danisha, so you wind up in Canada, you kind of get settled, you're moving forward with your career, your husband's moving forward with his career. When an obstacle comes up in your personal life and business, your pick, but when you encounter an obstacle, what's your approach to tackling that problem? Could we talk about that for a little while?
Yeah.
Any obstacle.
Any kind of obstacle, whether it's just now when I had to leave from home to come back to the office, I get suspicious of when there's an obstacle. I know that there's something great on the other side. So I get invigorated, and that I get charged up to push through, because I have, and I should also say, I shouldn't say that I don't experience fear as well. But one of my mindsets is to also be suspicious or reject those thoughts that make me feel as if I can't make it. I push those thoughts aside. And then I collaborate with my husband or a mentor and say, how can we move forward? How do we pivot? The mountain is there. We can push the mountain down. We could go around it. But it's really about having that mindset that there's something. Oh, I'll show you.
Yes.
So, so I have this thing called punch fear in the face, because because I was afraid of public speaking. Okay. And in the pandemic, to reach out to my clientele, I had to do webinars and speaking engagements, and I was just nervous. I don't know I'd do anything than to stand in front of someone or to speak on a live like this. But then I remembered something, that there is something great. If I do the thing that I'm afraid of, the fear goes away. And look at me, I'd never do a live. I'd never. If you can punch fear in the face, it silences and you move forward. And then I also reach out to those who are experts in whatever the obstacle is. When I wanted to, I reached out. So
you're not afraid to ask for help if you need.
Because I'm not a know-it-all. I'm a learn-it-all.
Yep.
Yeah. So I will learn, gather support, get a network around me, and as a community, I overcome obstacles. I'm not afraid of
Yes, you do.
obstacles.
Yeah, well, that, by the way, I'm glad you said that, because you also said that without saying it at the first part of this discussion as well, with your family, right? That it's apparent that you all don't live and make family decisions based on fear, right?
Because
And
that
that
would
you
cause you
take
to hunker
fear.
down. Yeah.
Well, and what do you think most people do, Danisha? They hunker down.
They hunker down, get frozen, and get torn apart by the thing that they're afraid of.
That's right as well. And that's why this is special. That's why you're elite. And I talk a lot about elite performance, right? I've recently shifted the focus, because I've decided that right now that's the best value I can add to everybody is elite performance. And I want to say something that everybody is elite at something, okay, but not everything. One of my all-time heroes is Tiger Woods. I can tell you what, Danisha, Tiger Woods will always be better at golf than Brett Packard will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but I can also tell you that when it comes to transforming large companies with thousands, tens of thousands of people, is that I'm better than Tiger Woods at that.
Yeah.
I'm resilient. I can do it, right? Yeah. And what does that make Tiger better or worse than Brett? Vice versa. It doesn't, it doesn't, because you're talking about different things. So for those of you tuning in, both live and that'll see this on replay, understand that you can be an elite performer, the very best at something, but not everything. So absolutely. When I talk about eliteness, I don't mean you're elite at every single thing that you do in your life, because nobody can really do that. Maybe our creator can, right? We cannot do that. So that's the important thing. So back to you, Danisha, with that as a backdrop. How do you define resiliency in your own words, based on your own life experience? So now you can kind of look back on your whole life, the time with your father, time as a little girl growing up, and you've walked us through your journey and everything. You've been in business, you've seen recession, you've seen recovery, right? You've seen a lot of things like that. How would you, in your own words, define resiliency?
Resiliency is being able to keep going. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be afraid. It doesn't mean that obstacles don't come into your way, but it means that I have a goal, I'm going to keep going. And also being able to sit with the ability that I don't know everything, and I'll need a partner. I'll need somebody, right? A mentor. I'll need an expert. But one thing I'm doing is not stopping. That's what resilience to me means.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah, continue.
And I think resilience grows, because I remember going through some really tough times, and resilience and that courage grows. So now, and I'm sure I'm not at the peak of where, as it relates to resilience, but it grows, meaning that I can compare my current situation to my previous experience and say, did I survive that? That means I can survive this one. And sometimes your mind will tell you, no, this time it's different. Yes, this time is different, but what are the skills that you have learned along the way? So it builds courage and confidence. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so we're going to unpack that in a minute as well, but I don't want to neglect the people that are tuning in live here. So we're going to kind of go on here as well. Got a couple of comments. Talo Charles has said, I am lucky to have you here, friends.
Nice.
We've got Sylvia Cummings. Thank you for the tips, dear. I think that's great. We have a Shakira. I'm a learn it all. Danisha's dropping gems today, so that's great. She also says she loves how you said push those thoughts and fear aside. Maybe you can start selling those coffee cups, because I think that's going to become quite
The lady in my office.
popular.
The lady in my office
Exactly.
made it as a Christmas present, because the whole year I would say, I'm going to punch fear in the face. And she gave this to me as a Christmas present.
Powerful. Yeah, and it resonated, right? I mean, sometimes things like that resonate with people as well. We have Cynthia, who, by the way, you all need to follow Cynthia. She shared something yesterday or today about at the grocery store purchasing some candy that she liked when she was in school as a little girl. And anyway, follow it, read the post. I'm not going to zero in on the details, but these things resonate with us, whether it's candy, whether it's our favorite food, our pet, our career, whatever it is, fear. That's what Danisha is saying. Find something that resonates with you, believe in it, share it, because others will benefit from it, and it'll benefit you, the sharer, as well from that. So I think that's good. Cynthia's agreeing that we can excel in one or two areas. We don't have to be good at everything, and that's exactly right. Nobody can do that. And Cynthia's a learned it all too. She says, Gary, the need for the community, however, that looks, let's see, let me understand this. So Gary Spencer, the need for community, however that looks, is key to moving unmovable mountains. Any comment on that?
Yeah. You can't do it alone. You need a community, you need a network, you need that support and diversity of thought. Yeah. And that's how you tackle problems.
Yeah, I can't think of one success that I've ever had or my teams have had, people that I've had, including leaders and individual contributors. I can't think of one relevant success in my entire life that could have been achieved by just one person. Yeah. It's partnership and resilience. Like any other muscle, it grows as we use it. That's a great point, Cynthia, that the more you do it, and that's what elite performers do as well. So they conquer the complex, and then it doesn't take very long. They satisfy their hunger, and then they go after the next complex, and they continue to do that. And it doesn't matter how difficult it is that your resiliency just guides you through that as well. And Joe is saying the power is in the community, and that's fantastic. We have Chanel Chapman, Danisha, that has a question for you. This has been amazing, but I wanted to ask you, how do you handle making mistakes?
So how do I handle making mistakes?
Yep.
I like making mistakes because that's how I learn. Okay. When I do make a mistake, and if I've hurt someone, I'll be the first to, I'll call it repent. I'll be the first to say, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry I hurt you, or my actions caused pain. So I apologize when I make a mistake that offends and hurts someone. And then when I make a mistake in my business or in my own personal life, I learn from that mistake so I don't repeat it again. And have it as a marker, have it as a marker to avoid or to make it to make it better, right? Not to avoid not to make that decision again, but to make sure that the outcome is successful for the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such an important point, right? That we learn. But the key also, what I heard you say, when I talk to somebody, Danisha, I also look at what they don't say. And one thing that you didn't say in all of that was that you stop. You keep moving, right? That how important is it to just keep moving regardless?
Yeah, because we should never be crippled by a mistake, by a setback. We have a goal in mind, right?
Yep.
So therefore, it doesn't matter. Like I said, we make mistakes, we stumble, we fall, we pivot, we grow, we learn, but the goal remains the same. We keep going.
Yeah, we get better. Steve saying, as we get better, because everybody makes the mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And so but it's not. And you mentioned when you make a mistake, if it affects somebody, you apologize. How many times do you apologize, Danisha?
Too many times, because I'm not perfect. As soon as I realize, or it's brought to my attention, and I get to, and I sit with myself often to
okay, that's good.
Uncover,
but when you apologize to a particular person that you say you've made a mistake, and how many times do you apologize to that particular person
for the same thing?
Yeah, same thing.
No. So I don't want to repeat that. I don't want to repeat that.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hurt that person again. But
right.
when we're in relationships, diversity of thought will hurt each other inadvertently. And I'm not afraid to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, but not for the same thing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the key point that I was trying to draw out. I did a poor job at answering the question, at asking the question the first time. That folks, if you make a mistake and it impacts somebody else and you feel the need to apologize, that's the right thing to do. Apologize, but don't live in apology. That's the point I was wanting to draw out here, and I didn't.
Right.
It's a bad on me, Danisha. I didn't do a good job with that, but anyway, I'm making up for it now. Don't live your life apologizing for the same thing.
No.
Condemnation, right? Apologize authentically, right?
Yeah.
You agree, Danisha?
Yeah.
Apologize authentically and then move off of it. Now, some people are going to want to, suck you in and get you to just constantly apologize. Don't fall for that. Okay, no. Apologize, be real, and move on, right? Yeah. You agree? Yeah,
I totally agree. Okay. And that's how even with my kids, and they apologize to me, and they would want to apologize over and over for the same thing. I said, I forgave you, it's done. And if I disciplined them, and daddy finds out about it, no more, it's done.
No more. Yeah, exactly. And just the point is, don't get hung up on it, right? And then you're free, right? And so is the other person, right? And then hopefully both people learn from that as well. Okay, great. Got a question here from Gary, Danisha. You can keep moving even when you're at rest. Your thoughts. So you can keep moving, is what he's saying. But even when you're resting, what do you think about that?
When he says resting, meaning when I'm resting, or if I'm in my personal space, I'm in that zone. I'm decluttering, and I'm thinking, I'm decluttering and re-energizing. But it's also my quiet time is about strategizing for the next day. I don't believe in spinning. I don't believe in spinning and I'm resting and still being on nerves and spinning my wheels. I find time to pray and to be calm, and also to strategize so that I can be stronger and more strategic in my move when I move forward.
Right. Yeah, I think that's great. And I actually was thinking about what I could add to that, and I have nothing to add. I agree with you. I think I do all of those things as well. You and I probably do them differently because we're different people, but I think you hit on the key points that way. Thanks, Gary, for the question, and thank you, Danisha, for that. And Gary agrees with what you said. So thank you for satisfying his question. Let's see here. we have Odongo Stephen is saying, making mistakes lead us to the right direction. Without making mistakes, we cannot learn and grow.
Nice.
Spot on, right? And may God bless you all, Natalo, Charles. Thank you, Natalo. That's very kind of you. I want to just acknowledge an ex-colleague of mine from Lusaka, Zambia, is over on Facebook. Agatha, I saw you. So thank you for tuning in as well. Again, anybody in LinkedIn, we have just a few minutes left, but I'm going to shift the topic a little bit with Danisha here, and I want to talk about something that I'm passionate about and that I promote heavily on my particular platform, which is women in the business world, and specifically women, more women in leadership. And I think that I'll just tell a bit of a background story. When I was in Japan, when I went to Japan, where I was for 6 years, and I was responsible and accountable for a branch network, 24 branch network, but it was a big branch network, and it was highly profitable business, and we had #1 market share in the country for foreign currency. But I remember after I was given authority over the branches, I went out to the field and started talking to people and meeting people in the front line, kind of my visits to Walmart, like we spoke about. And so out of the 24, I remember walking in on a Monday. I had a meeting with my team, and I walked in, and the first question I had is, I said, why are there only 2 women branch managers? It was just a question. And in the essence of time, I'm going to kind of speed up the story. It won't do it justice, but those of you that know me have heard me say this before. And the looks I got were, are you crazy? Why are you asking a question like that? Are you crazy? Why are you focused on this? We have bigger fish to fry than, two women, da, 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 da. Anyway, I'll fast forward 18 months. In 18 months later, we had more than half women. Okay. And in Japan, culturally, you don't fire people. You can fire people if there's severe wrongdoing, but typically in Japan, you don't remove people. Even for performance, you demote people. That's just culturally how it works, right? Okay. Every country's different and many different regards, right? So the reason why I'm saying this, Danisha, is that change can happen, but it takes a catalyst for change. In that Japan example, that was myself and along with many of the colleagues that I worked, but it was me pushing the women, and it got to the point that it was so concerning to the regulator, who, by the way, consisted mostly of men, okay? They were concerned that maybe we were just appointing women for the sake of appointing women. So they come in and they checked our process for my process. I was accountable for this. They checked my process for, are you putting the right people in the job? Or are you doing this on gender? And their conclusion was that these were the right people for the job, right? So there was nothing wrong with that, but it was contra to the culture, is the point that I want to make. Now, that's a Japan specific issue, right? But you can go all around the world, right? And you can look at boards, you can look at executive leadership teams, you can look at branch teams as well. Typically, the lower you get into an organization, you'll have more women. Typically, not in all cases, okay? But that's a typical thing that you can kind of count on. But the issue is women in leadership, and that now we're getting to this point. Women in leadership has significant RFI, room for improvement, okay? Let's talk a little bit about that, Danisha, as well, and women in leadership. And in your view, what encouragement would you give to women that want to pursue a career in leadership, given all of this I just spoke for 2 or 3 minutes about the setting it up here. But what would your advice be? Because it's reality, and feel free to comment on anything that I said as well.
Yeah, I would say go for it, for one. But then for as a woman, so I'll maybe give
Mhm.
an example of what happened when I first started my career. Somebody came to me and said, you know what, for financial advice, because I should say I'm a financial advisor.
Mhm.
Most financial advisors are middle-aged men, and you're not going to do
Okay.
well because you are not middle-aged. I'm getting there. You're not middle-aged. You're
Mhm.
not a male, and you're a woman. And then that accent of yours. And of course, I said, thank you for, I was not hurt because he was telling the truth.
Yep.
But I would say for women, push through, because you know that you have years of battle scars. You know you would have had to be the best in your field to
Mhm.
get to where you are.
Yep.
So go for it. And of course, tear down that thought that you can't make it. You can do it because there's a good chance that you are well read. So you're on the same playing field as everybody else, but you have that resilience, right? And you're able
Mhm.
to pivot and to change with the moving tides. And you're not stuck in your ways based on, old boys club. And
Right.
generally
Mhm.
women tend to be very intuitive and able to discern the signs of the times and to relate to the people that they meet. So there's a good chance you'll be successful. So go for it.
You're spot on. That there's a lot there that's very powerful. Thank you, Danisha, for that. And I just add on top of that is that the creativity, it's a fact. And if any of you want the data, point you to people on LinkedIn that get this kind of data, but women are more creative. Okay. And now men are good at other things as well, but we're talking about women today. And I think that the fact that that the more diverse your leadership is, and we're talking only about gender today, and it's the world is not only about gender, and I understand
Yeah.
that, but that's what we're talking about today. Okay, you get more women in leadership, and it's also a fact. Okay, and there's data to back this up as well, that profit performance is higher. Okay. So now I mentioned at the beginning of this program that the U.S. is now in recession, right? I It would really help a lot to have a more creative mix in your leadership, because the types of decisions that businesses are going to need to make in an economy in recession, that creativity is needed, will be needed more than ever now. So men, that have the power to open the doors and to make some things happen. I gave you an example of what I did it back in Japan. If I can do it back then, you can do it now, and your business will benefit. So now's the time to do this. Danisha gave advice to the women out there on what they can do. This is Brett's advice to the men on what you can and should do now, for the sake, not for the sake of women, for the sake of your bottom line.
Yeah.
Women can help you do that. Any comments on that, Danisha?
Yes, you nailed it about being creative, being agile.
Yep.
Diversity of thought. You did an excellent job. And yes, and on top of your advice to men, you said opening those doors. Yes, call their names in rooms that those women would never have access to. If it's on the golf course or at wherever men gather to make these wheels and deals, mention that woman's name to open doors for her. And also to call out,
Yep.
stand up for those, stand up and speak against those microaggressions. Oh, the estrogen, or oh, she's a man eater, she's aggressive.
Mhm.
Say I've never experienced that. You know, you don't have to be aggressive, or you don't have to, you know, go on a major campaign, but have them to tell you more. And then you'll see those,
Brilliant.
they become
Yeah.
ashamed of their opinions. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And, you know, it does take, don't be complicit in letting the legacy of this issue just carry forward. You know, be
Yeah.
bold, right? Because I can tell you, back to that Japan story, because of just this one particular move that was made, you should have seen what it did for performance.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it was dramatically different 18 months into this equation. And I was there for 6 years. So this was a great investment that, fortunately, it was the longest assignment I ever had, was this Japan assignment. And I was able to bear the fruits. We and the team, me as the head, we were able to bear the fruits of that one decision for over 6 years, right? It just paid big dividends, right? It's a wonderful thing. So that's great advice. Sharon Doran loves what you spoke about, women in leadership. Thank you, Danisha, for that. We have Chanel Chapman. This is the last question I'm going to take of the day. As a woman, how do you support other women in a male-dominated field?
Yeah. So
take a crack at that. Yep.
Absolutely. I am very big on collaboration. So you should never ever see another woman as your competition. We're in this together. So I am involved in the IWB, Immigrant Women in Business. You know, Svetlana and her husband, he was on your team. But
yes,
even
I do.
I cheer on other women, and if I see her succeeding, that means I can do it now. I can do it. She's opened the door for me. I'm never ever women should never ever tear down each other. We're lock arms together. And
I agree. And you know, that would make for a better, I mean, that's a win-win all the way around. So women, don't tear it, build each other up, right?
Yeah.
And for the men out there, please support and embrace, to at least look at and take some action on how your business and why your business will benefit from appointing more women in leadership. Don't let it rest to just be an HR task, because it shouldn't be an HR task, right? We have Gary, last comment I'm going to read, then we need to start to wrap up, Danisha. Gary works in the construction industry, and there's a lot of women who want to be in construction at all levels, is what he's saying. And they're out there, but companies need to go out and find them, you know, because that's not necessarily one where you've got a lot of women, you know, knocking on your door. So even so if the construction industry, you know, you go out and seek them. I told some people the other day in my network that to find an elite performer, somebody asked me, Brett, these elite performers, where do you find them? And I said, you can go to the woods if you need to, but go find them, because they are there. So go to the woods, get them if that's what you have to do. But some things in business and life, right, which you and your family spoke about, which you spoke about related to your family, Danisha. Some things you just have to do. So you just go out and do it, right? Yeah. Any closing words, Danisha, before we wrap up?
So I'm just on, I know.
Yeah.
So on that's last comment, my neighbor was looking to paint his house, and he got some cards, and he was talking to me and throwing, you know, and he said, well, there's a girl here, but what does she know? I said, did you hear yourself speak? I said, there's a good chance that she's the best of all of them. She will pay attention to detail. I don't know if he actually took my advice, but in the construction industry, leverage these women because they will pay attention to detail. They'll be more careful around the plant. So, yeah.
Beautiful point. And Gary, I know you've heard that, but Gary, you probably don't need to hear this, because I know that you support women in a great manner. But that's a great message out there for everybody. Danisha, it's been a most enjoyable hour with you. Thank you for investing the time to come on to the Packard Network Live and they're a big part of your life story to share about resiliency, to have a discussion about so many different things, obstacles. I love your coffee cup. I love your attitude. And I think that the viewers that have seen this live and those that will watch it on replay over the weekend are getting a real good taste of what makes you tick and why you're so elite. And I think that's really wonderful. So thank you, Danisha, very much for coming on today and sharing with us. Thanks for having me. You betcha. So great. Okay, everybody. So I'm going to wrap it up now. Thank you again for tuning in. I'll be back next week with a very special guest. The cameras will shift a bit southward to California, and I will reveal the details on that early next week. But it's definitely a woman that you won't want to miss, that does a lot of great work for other women. And so we'll be talking about that a bit next week. So for now, thank you very much. And I wish you all a terrific